Picture this. You're 35 years old, sitting in your car in the driveway after a 12-hour workday. You're staring at the front door of your own house, and for some reason your chest feels tight and you don't want to go inside. 6 months ago, you thought you found a goddess. She was charming, intelligent, and seemed more empathetic than any woman you'd ever met. She listened to your problems with what felt like genuine concern and offered advice that made you feel understood in ways you've never experienced. But now you find yourself questioning your own memory, your own judgment, and even your own sanity. You feel constantly guilty for things you can't remember doing wrong, and you're exhausted from walking on emotional landmines that appear without warning. Brother, you're living in a fantasy. The woman you fell in love with doesn't actually exist. She was a carefully constructed character performed to hook you and secure your resources. You have encountered what psychologists call the shadow, the unconscious darkness that some people carry like an invisible virus, infecting everyone around them with unresolved psychological toxicity. To understand why this goddess is breaking your life, we must look into the philosophy of the mind and the works of Carl Jung. Jung wrote about the shadow, those unintegrated parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. For the female covert narcissist, her shadow is a predator, moving silently in plain sight. Unlike the loud, attention-seeking grandiose types, she uses her beauty and perceived vulnerability as a weapons system. She operates within a psychological matrix where you are never relating to the real her. You are always relating to her distorted perception of who you are. This matrix is self-reinforcing. When she accuses you of being emotionally unavailable, she is actually transferring her own internal emotional walls onto you. Every conversation becomes an argument about who you are rather than what you've done. This constant defense against false accusations erodes your sense of self, leaving you a stranger in your own skin. The female covert narcissist's first and most dangerous weapon is manufactured vulnerability. She shares deeply personal information, childhood wounds, past betrayals, and secret fears remarkably early in the relationship. You feel honored to be trusted with such private information, interpreting it as a special connection. But you must realize she isn't sharing for connection, she is downloading for relief. Each emotional download shifts a piece of her instability onto your shoulders until her inner chaos becomes your external reality. She isn't looking for a partner, she's looking for a host who can sustain her emotional dysfunction indefinitely. This triggers your masculine protective instinct, which becomes the very hook that keeps you trapped in her psychological web. You become an unpaid therapist with unlimited overtime and no possibility of ever finishing the job. Living with this woman is like working in a factory designed to manufacture one product, your complete and total self-doubt. Every day is an assembly line producing the same devastating question: am I the problem here? She uses a sophisticated weapon called temporal blameshifting. In her mind, you are not just responsible for current household issues, you are accountable for every negative experience she has ever had, even those that happened before you met. If her father was absent or her ex-boyfriend cheated, she justifies punishing you today for their crimes. She rewrites history, creating fictional narratives where you are the villain, in stories where you were either the hero or completely absent. You end up apologizing for things you didn't do just to have 5 minutes of peace. You have been transformed from a sovereign man into an emotional appliance, a resource to be utilized, and a punching bag for her internal chaos. Why don't you just leave? Because you are trapped in a trauma bond. This isn't love, it's a psychological attachment formed through cycles of intense stress followed by relief. She uses intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Occasionally, she is sweet and loving, the woman you fell in love with, just often enough to keep you hooked and hoping for a turnaround that never lasts. Your brain becomes chemically dependent on those rare moments of approval.
You begin to equate the intensity of the drama with the depth of the love. You develop what I call domestic Stockholm syndrome, where you identify with the goals of the system that exploits you and defend the very bars of your cage. You believe you're being supportive while you're actually being complicit in your own colonization. The path to protection is through individuation, the process of becoming a whole individual rather than a collection of reactions to her moods. You must achieve psychological sovereignty. This means becoming so internally complete that her approval or disapproval becomes irrelevant to your sense of worth. You must recognize that you cannot love someone into psychological health. You cannot sacrifice yourself enough to fill a void that has no bottom. True strength comes from abandoning the illusion of control and focusing exclusively on what you can control, your own boundaries and choices. Start enforcing proactive boundaries. If she violates your peace, reduce her access to your time and attention. Quality women respect men who have the backbone to maintain their standards regardless of emotional pressure. Reality is undefeated and it doesn't care about your feelings. You can keep shrinking yourself to fit under her ever-growing crown of expectations, or you can reclaim your life. This journey is brutal and lonely, and you will be shamed for it. But being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. The red button is in front of you. Push it and see the world for what it actually is, or keep wondering why your loyalty is being rewarded with contempt. The performance ends today. Reclaim your core. Don't say you weren't warned. Subscribe to Sovereign Core to continue decoding the hidden algorithms of the mind. Hit the notification bell because understanding these dynamics could save you from years of psychological damage disguised as love. Reality is undefeated. See you in the next one.